I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. And this is the I Hate Politics candidate interview with David Blair from Montgomery County Executive. David Blair is a Rockville businessman who built a multi-billion-dollar prescription drug benefits company. He sold the company in 2013 and ran for Montgomery County Executive in 2018 when he lost the Democratic primary to the current county executive, Marc Elrich, by 77 votes. You can't have a closer election. Since losing the 2018 primary, Blair has maintained his public presence primarily through his philanthropy. Music for this episode comes from Kara Levchenko, an Arlington-based singer-songwriter who is the choir director at Centreville High School in Fairfax, Virginia.
Forgot about the way it felt when we'd say hello. How are you? 'Cause these days we ain't doing so well. This is my quarantine song. Everything feels wrong, but I know it will be okay. Just maybe not today. There's so much I miss, it's hard to pick.
David Blair, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you said that you wanted to talk about economic development. The term development means various different things in different contexts. What, in your view, is economic development?
To me, economic development is about good paying jobs. Good paying jobs. And I think it's appropriate to take a step back and say, so why is economic development, or why is it important to have good paying jobs? And I got into this race because of my concerns around equity and education. And when you start to peel back the onion and say, okay, why aren't we investing in the social programs in the schools at the rate we should be? As you start to go, dig deep down into it, you find that we're losing our jobs, and jobs are our tax base. When I was early in my business career, I was selling to a Catholic hospital system. And when I walked in, right in their corporate offices, right on the wall, it said, no margin, no mission, meaning that we can't pursue our values and what we hold to be near and dear to us if we don't have the proper funding. And so when I think, okay, so why isn't Montgomery County working for everybody? It's because we're losing our tax base.
But our population is growing. So how is it that we are losing jobs, but our population is also growing? People are living here but working elsewhere. Is that your argument?
Before the pandemic, each morning was something like 200,000 Montgomery County residents were getting up and leaving the county for a job, right? And so we need to start creating those jobs here. And we have essentially the same number of businesses in Montgomery County today that we had 15 years ago. And that's incredibly unique to Montgomery County. In the region, we're tens of thousands of new businesses have been created over the same period of time.
But you don't think that it is puzzling that the population of the county has grown significantly? Isn't living in the county mean anything?
It's almost unfathomable that you could have a increase in population and the same number of jobs, right? And so specifically, over the past 15 years, we've only grown our employment by 1.6%, right? While it's 12% in the rest of the region. And the number of new businesses, while it's essentially flat, they're up about 1% or so. It's 22% up in the region. And so the business climate that we've created here is such that businesses would prefer to be elsewhere. And that's having a devastating impact on our tax base. And let me just describe that for you because it's really important. And this is from the IRS. The IRS gives us tremendous data. And if you look at over the past 10 years, the net tax migration, okay, so net tax migration. So if you say it another way, if you added up all the W-2s that have moved in and you subtracted the W-2s that have left, we've got a negative tax migration of $5.2 billion. And now it doesn't take, a math scientist to figure out when you multiply that by our local income tax, which is 3.2%. So we're losing tens of millions of dollars, $150 million, if you do the math quickly, in lost local income. And so no wonder we're struggling to pay for, some of the basic services that we've grown, people who've grown up here expect and candidly deserve.
Well, that's interesting, because is the argument then that people that are moving in are basically lower income and that higher income people are moving out? Is that the argument?
We're losing high paying jobs and they're being replaced with low paying jobs. Like that's the net of it. And the delta, if you will, is that $5.2 billion that I described.
Okay, let me throw yet another part to you, right? Over the last period that you're talking about, let's say even 20 years, property prices in Montgomery County have grown dramatically. So people that are choosing to live here cannot be that poor, cannot be lower income in the way that you're describing them.
This is very much a Rubik's Cube. So there's that, and you just described a really interesting part, which is the affordability of Montgomery County. It's gotten incredibly expensive to live here. I think over that period.
But also to the point that you made, that the net W-2 outflow, if you will, showed that we have lost this much of income base in the county. And yet people are moving here, population is growing, and home prices are up. So people are paying more for housing in order to move here. So, something is missing here.
Well, I think what the part that's missing is how desperately families are struggling to make ends meet here. And so we had a Renters Alliance forum, and the statistics for how families are struggling to make it work here is alarming. We have 20,000 of our families, resident owners that are renters, are facing eviction, and they're struggling to figure out how to make their rent payments. And so I think the affordability of Montgomery County is a big issue, and it's not just for renters; it's for everyone. We've raised property taxes 5 times over the past 20 years. We've raised the energy tax. We've increased every parking fee, transit fee. So it's really we've maxed out the local income tax. So it's gotten really expensive to live here.
Okay. Let's talk about why you think that, we are losing out on jobs.
It's not one thing, it's everything. And so from a personal perspective, I had a business in Rockville, Maryland. It was a Fortune 500 company. We had thousands of employees around the country. Our headquarters were in Rockville. And in no place was it more difficult to do business than in Rockville. And that was, and at first I didn't realize it. I didn't understand that it was difficult. But when we started opening up other offices around the country, I became very much aware of that. And so, for example, I remember we were looking to open up a new call center, and I flew to Des Moines, Iowa. And I was literally picked up at the airport by their economic development team. I was taken to a nice dinner. The next morning, they took me to look at real estate. They could not have treated me better. And in Rockville, when we were moving our corporate headquarters, I was told, you should hire a permit consulting firm to help you expedite your permits. It was the opposite. And then when you talk to business owners, you hear a lot of things around our inconsistent inspections, our permitting process. We put in an energy tax 10 years ago, and this is kind of the law of unintended consequences, but we put in that energy tax 10 years ago. And now if you are a business that uses a lot of energy, particularly IT firms, you're at a huge disadvantage to be doing business in Montgomery County. In fact, Dominion Power years ago was soliciting our IT firm saying, here's how much you can save on your electricity bills if you move your business to Virginia. And that's exactly what's happened.
All right. So let's just list them. So you think there is a business unfriendly environment? You think the taxes, we tax more? What else?
Well, the overall approach to rules, regulations, inspections, permits. So we have a lot of regulations here that are redundant or inconsistent with other jurisdictions.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so here's one. So I was with a restaurant owner last week, and I didn't know this, but there's a continuing education that you have to go through as if you work in restaurants, right? Which makes sense, to make sure that that you're properly handling food. He has many restaurants all over the country, and it's 5 years. That every 5 years you need to go through this continuing education. In Montgomery County, it's 3 years. Just cause, right? There's no science behind it. It was just somebody thought that was a good idea, so they put in 3 years. And that's it's that one thing times 1,000, right? Are rules that they have to adhere to that they wouldn't necessarily have to adhere to in another jurisdiction. We convened a restaurant roundtable over last summer with 20 business owners, and they gave us maybe 20 examples, and then the example I gave you didn't come up in that meeting, but just came up, more recently. It was interesting when we had that roundtable. I asked the group, I said, who is likely to open up another restaurant? And probably of the 20 restaurant owners, maybe 7 raised their hand. And I said, okay, of the 7 of you, how many of you are likely to open up another restaurant in Montgomery County? All 7 hands went down. And we've taken an approach in Montgomery County, Montgomery County is an island, and that people can't move, that capital can't move. But each business owner is making an individual decision, right? And if there's less of a hassle to open up a restaurant in Prince George's County or DC or Northern Virginia, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And I'll share this with you. One of the owners I recall saying, he said, David, even if I could get comfortable with the regulations that you have in place today, I'm afraid of what the county will do next. I'm afraid of what the county will do next. And that's just, and I don't know where that culture comes from. And maybe it's because historically, we've been able to benefit so much from the federal government, but we've just taken an approach that business is almost like a necessary evil. And that's actually how I felt as a business owner in Rockville, that I was contributing to traffic was how I felt as a business owner.
But you built a business in Rockville. Despite all of that, there is a reason why you remained and stayed in Rockville. There is a reason why, AstraZeneca is here. It's not that Montgomery County has nothing going for it. Many companies have made choices to locate here. Let me maybe ask you this question a little bit differently. So Northern Virginia is the point of comparison often for Montgomery County, right? When you look at Northern Virginia and you look at sort of building codes or those kinds of things, I would imagine they're not that different. I would imagine that building codes are now national. So, what really is the issue? I will say this also, that I've heard what you have just said repeatedly over a long time. But my problem has been that I haven't found evidence of where Northern Virginia is actually better.
First, I want to comment on something that you said, and then I'll respond to that question directly. So you said, businesses are still here. I built a company in Rockville, right? So we have an incredibly talented workforce here in Montgomery County. It's incredible that the talent. And so that's why businesses want to be here. And it's why we've been able to maintain the businesses that we have. So start there. But then the differences in business, like building codes, to your point, we talk to engineering companies all the time, and they'll say nowhere else in the country do we face the delays and the requirements that we do in Montgomery County. People say, if I was building a building in, Fairfax, I could get it done in 2 years, right? I could get it through the process, get a shovel in the ground, 5 years in Montgomery County. And then I've said, where else in the country do you experience this? Nowhere else. Even things like I don't know if you're familiar with, we're currently, the county council is looking at new building standards, and we are contemplating legislation that will require building owners to essentially make their buildings more energy efficient. Okay.
Correct. And that's statewide as well in Maryland.
So no, this is at the county level.
Yeah, both.
But this is for existing buildings, okay? So this is the existing building. So this is where we're going to ask building owners to go back and replace HVAC systems. And I ask, where else in the country are they doing this? They're only doing it in 3 other parts of the country. So when you say you don't think that our standards are different than Northern Virginia, I would disagree with you very much so. That that the requirements that the hoops that we make our businesses jump through here is different.
So you don't think we should have enhanced energy standards for our older buildings, only for new ones? Is that correct?
Well, no. So it's a delicate balance, right? Because what's happening is when you're not consistent with the region, businesses go elsewhere. And so what we need is a level playing field. And so when you're out in front of everybody else, the businesses just go elsewhere. And so I think I would take a much more regional approach to this. Like, and you said the word state, which is great. Like, I very much agree that the building standard should be a statewide initiative, not local, because business owners are just more likely to, move to a different county. It's just too easy.
So you said this repeatedly now, Montgomery County is not an island and that we should work, as a region, correct?
Yes.
What working as a region may mean living in Montgomery County, but working in Northern Virginia. What's wrong with that?
Well, so there's
that is a regional economy,
right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that the challenge is you'd want people in Northern Virginia also working in Montgomery County. The balance has shifted so much that, if you go to the American Legion Bridge at 8:30 in the morning and 5:30 in the evening, and you can see which direction the traffic's going. Right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And so clearly, I think more balance would work to everyone's benefit.
How do you get that balance? What do you do to attract more jobs to Montgomery County, attract high-paying jobs to Montgomery County, as you pointed out? What is the policy here?
Well, I've probably spent more time on this question than I did, building a Fortune 500 company. And over the past decade, I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with community leaders, business owners, how we can do this. And so at the very essence, we need to leverage what we already have here. Okay. So let's say like our life sciences, right? So life sciences is a beacon here, and it's something that we can continue to build around. And I think, but one of the challenges we have with life sciences is other regions are growing at a much faster rate with life sciences than we are. So it feels good that we're growing, but for example, Salt Lake City now has more life science jobs than Montgomery County. Raleigh-Durham has more life science jobs than Montgomery County. Like we're getting eclipsed by other parts that have been much more aggressive. So I would double down on life sciences. I think.
But what does it mean to double down on life sciences? What exactly what can the county do to double down on life sciences as you just described?
Well, so one is education. So when I've met with life science CEOs, one of the challenges they have is just talent. And so not everyone needs to have a 4-year degree. There's great 2-year programs where folks can be lab technicians. And so we're not producing enough of the right talent. But then part of this is also just relationships. And it's if you're a CEO of a big company, you want to know that you have the cell phone of the county executive, and the county executive's got your back, and they're going to help you get through a permit process or an inspection process. It was interesting. I had a conversation with a CEO a couple of weeks ago, and he said, it was a business that he opened up in Ohio, and he said they had it was like a concierge service that he said he got to open up his business. And I was like, well, that's a good word. We should have like a concierge. So I think it's talent. It's making sure we're training our workforce properly, and then it's making sure that those businesses know that we're going to be friendly to them, both so that they can open their business on a timely manner, and then they're going to have the talent to fill those buildings.
Okay, so let's talk about education. in the terms that you just described, what is it that you would do to enable more lab technicians to be trained in Montgomery County so that the life science companies would come here more readily?
Well, and this is something that I worked with. If you're familiar with the Kerwin Commission, this is something that was a key element, and this is a blueprint for Maryland how we can really move our education process forward. And so much of it is meeting, intervening with the rising juniors and talking to them about career opportunities and letting them know what is available. Because one of the challenges we have, and this is shocking, over the past decade, 4 out of 10 of our Montgomery County Public Schools graduates is neither college ready nor career ready. So we're essentially sentencing these young men and women to a career of minimum wage jobs. And so one is letting them know what's available.
Sure, I understand all of that. The question I'm asking you is, what will you do as county executive to ensure that these juniors are making the choices or making sure that MCPS gets all our students career and college ready? Because MCPS is not governed by the county executive. MCPS has its own governing body. So what would be your role here?
Well, I think so. You're absolutely right that the superintendent is reports to the Board of Education, but we need to obviously work hand in hand on so many things, right?
How?
And so, excuse me.
How?
Well, so clearly it's in the best interest of the superintendent and the school board to make sure that the young men and women that are graduating have a career, and they're very much aligned with that. And so we're looking at all the different programs that we can put in place. So it's not just lab technicians, right? It's automotive tech is another great example of is a phenomenal job, pays $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Montgomery College offers it. When you meet with car dealerships, they're desperate to hire auto techs. We only have 40 students in that class. And this is a county that has, 700,000 cars. And we've got 40 people that are training at Montgomery College to become auto techs.
Is the actual proposal then to expand the Montgomery College automotive program?
Yes. The pain point is that the students aren't aware that such a thing exists. And so that's a huge challenge. And so and one of the things that's incredibly frustrating about this county is we do have some great apprenticeship programs at some high schools. Like Wheaton has a great apprenticeship program for life sciences, but every high school or every student should have the opportunity to benefit from these.
I agree with all that you said, except I don't see a role for the county executive in it. That's the question. I mean, you are running to be a county executive, right? And obviously those things that you just described with respect to choices for juniors in high school is very, very important. Very, very important. But the county executive has particularly no role there. I mean, no authority there.
So let me describe it. Let me describe a couple different things. Okay. So one, the county executive sets the budget for the school. And it's much of that's dictated by state law and maintenance of effort. However, every single year, the school board asks for more money than the maintenance of effort. And so that's very much at the discretion of the county executive and the county council. And so clearly, if we're going to be paying more to the schools than required by the state, we need to have alignment. And one of that alignment has to be getting these young men and women either college ready or career ready. So I think that's leverage. But more importantly, the county executive can put a spotlight on this, right? And also has a podium and a mic, right? And so this is an opportunity for leadership to step in and say, it is fundamentally wrong that 4 out of 10 of our kids are graduating and they're not college or career ready. So for 18 years, what have we done? Right? And so I have that microphone, I have that spotlight, and I actually have had the opportunity to meet with school board members. And I can tell you that this isn't controversial. They want it too. We will no doubt work hand in hand to make this happen.
Oh, I have no doubt you'll work hand in hand. But I think the issue is, like you said, is what is the budget that you're willing to put behind that? What is it that you're going to do in order to make that happen? None of your goals are controversial at all. In fact, right? They are, right down the middle with, and we've had these goals for a long time. Are you suggesting a much more active county government role in the education system in Montgomery County?
So it's interesting. We can circle almost back to the beginning of this conversation when we talked about economic development. Why economic development? So the challenge that we don't lack for good ideas in Montgomery County. We don't lack for a talented workforce, right? We have all the know-how. We lack the money, right? And so part of this is making sure we have the money to properly fund these programs, right? And that comes from, as we've talked about, the deteriorating tax base that we have here, the loss of jobs, right? So part of it goes back to the no margin, no mission, right? So we need the money to fund these programs. They exist. We have phenomenal pilot programs all over this county and that touch every aspect of life, but they're pilots. Right. And if it's a great program, why doesn't everyone have access to that? Oh, because we don't have the money. So that's why, if I sound like a broken record, it goes back to we need to create the jobs to get the money to pay for this. Now, and maybe I'll anticipate your next question, which might be, well, David, it's going to take you years, right, to create jobs, to bring back those billions of dollars of taxes that have been lost. So one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make government more efficient, right? We're going to have to look for efficiencies within county government so that we can fund our priorities, which have to be, our children, education, and equity.
Where will you find efficiencies in local government? Where do you think the cuts lie? 50% of the budget goes to schools, and there you want to add more, not reduce them, I take it. Where are you going to find this efficiency?
The easiest thing we can do to help grow our tax base is start buying local, right? So one of the things that you'll see in our economic development plan is we've got to create a powerful Montgomery brand, because that will generate immediate revenues. And so, like, for example, MCPS. Why aren't they buying, Montgomery County Public Schools, why aren't they buying their food from our ag reserve? Just imagine how, so when you get into it.
Because most of their food comes from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Right. And because we don't have processing facilities to, cut the vegetables up in the way that the school system needs them cut up. So there's some obstacles, but we've got to figure out how to start buying local. But then to your question about where are we going to find the efficiencies, I'll tell you, there's little things, like you probably saw on the news a year ago that the county bought $600,000 of laptops when we had brand new laptops, unopened in a warehouse because we don't have proper inventory controls. There's medium type things like overtime. So you see this a lot in businesses. Someone puts in a hiring freeze because that's going to save us money, but then overtime expense goes way up. In fact, if you look at like firefighters, like $15 million a year in overtime has gone to firefighters. Look at big things like healthcare. So the county spends $330 million or so per year in healthcare, which is phenomenal. And if you've been to these clinics, they're amazing. And we're certainly not going to take those away from anybody. And when you look at what President Obama passed over a decade ago, every American has a right to insurance, right? And so we have not been vigilant about making sure that everyone who's obtaining services, should they be reimbursed from Medicaid or Medicare, or is there a private insurer, right? So we've got to be incredibly, because the only ones that we should be paying for are undocumented residents. Everybody else, we should be getting a reimbursement from federal or state resources.
Is that not happening now?
So it's not their mission and vision. It's not. They are much more focused on getting the services delivered than figuring out how to get reimbursed. And so those are three examples. But I'll tell you this. So I ran a company that had a $6 billion budget. All right. So it's almost the same size as our county. Okay. Every single year, you leverage technology, right? And there's so many new technologies that have been developed. I'll give you a specific example in a second. You're stamping out redundancies, you're finding efficiencies. And you've got to do that. And I will tell you, that has not been a priority of this administration. And let me give you a specific example on the technology side. And I vehemently advocated for this 4 or 5 years ago. Telehealth. Okay. So today we have roughly 125 elementary schools. A dozen of them have these phenomenal health clinics within them. And they have a nurse practitioner, a physician comes by, and they're wonderful for the community. They're also incredibly expensive, about $1 million per year, per facility. I could put telehealth in all 125 of these elementary schools for less than what we have it in 12. And with because there's not always a sick student in the nurse's office, right? It's with telehealth, you can actually dial up the physician when you need it. And I'll tell you this, when I was promoting this, 4 or 5 years ago, people thought I had 3 heads. But now, through the pandemic, perhaps one of the blessings of this pandemic has been, we're now used to telehealth. And so unfortunately, the price for telehealth has gone through the roof because demand's gone up since that time. But nonetheless, it's still a phenomenal way that we could save money and still deliver the services that our residents deserve.
You compared running your company to running the county. Do you think there's a difference between running government and running a private corporation, or do you think it's the same thing?
Oh, I think it's incredibly different. I think there's clearly there are skills that are translatable or transferable. So like executive leadership, right? I think is incredibly important when you think about executive leadership, it's, how do you surround yourself with, people that are smarter than you? And then you work with them to set a vision, ambitious goals. You help remove obstacles, and then you empower them, right? And then you get out of the way, and then you hold them accountable. So I think that kind of executive leadership skill to actually get things done, measurable results. I think another important part of being an executive is the recruitment and retention of talent. And that's, one of the things that we see in this current administration is a lot of our talented directors are leaving. Certainly things like compensation strategies, we want to make sure that the compensation for the department heads is aligned. That's something that's very much important. Customer service, right, is, we had, say 1,000 call center reps, and making sure that the individual, the customer that was on the other side of that phone call was receiving the best service. I think customer service translates. Certainly accountability. When you run a public company, you quickly realize it's not your money and you have a fiduciary responsibility. Same thing with county government, right? That it's not our money, it's taxpayer money. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're spending that money wisely. So I think there's certainly some skills that transfer, but it's very much different in the way it operates. It's much more bureaucratic, and that's going to be something that I've gotten used to because I've been working with county government the last 10 years, and I've seen it firsthand.
Okay, that's interesting. You just recommended pay rises for government officials. That over, I think, 3/4 of the county budget goes to pay and salaries. And you want to cut and bring efficiencies. How does those two things sort of square up?
No, so I said compensation strategies. I didn't mean that we were going to increase compensation, but so I think if you look at let's say your dozen top department heads, right? Rather than kind of, if their compensation was 95% base and 5% bonus, maybe it should be 80% base and 20% bonus, right? Like, how do you make sure that the specific incentives of the department heads is very much aligned with what our residents are seeking? Because at the end of the day, people do what's in their best interest. And so you want to make sure that there's alignment. So it's not about
a bonus system in county government right now?
Well, it's not. It's not effective. It's not effective.
I mean, do we even have one? I'm not sure we have one.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's allowable by law, by the merit system.
Well, so there's opportunities, and this wouldn't be countywide. This would just be with you, kind of my direct reports.
Okay. This is, so you're suggesting some sort of compensation, system change for higher executives, but not a pay rise for people that are on the ground providing the services, and perhaps who are most affected by what's going on in the county now. That's a very difficult political sell.
Oh, so I just want to catch it because I don't think I said that at all. I actually think just the opposite. Our teachers, for example, are underpaid. They can make more money in other counties, and so we're losing our best teachers. I think you can say the same thing about our police officers. They're not. So I actually think we need.
Let me correct you. I don't think we pay more. We pay less than other counties. Our working conditions are a bit different. People, for example, with the police, officers like to live outside of Montgomery County because it's cheaper while working in Montgomery County. That's the challenge here.
Well, it's the other surrounding jurisdictions now pay more.
With teachers, it's only DC.
The challenges that we have around police and fire and teachers is our pay has not kept up with the surrounding areas. And then you brought up a really important point. And it's more expensive to live here, right? So if you're a police officer and you're living in Howard County and you're commuting to Montgomery County every day, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, wow, I could make more money here in Howard County and I don't have to drive all the way to Montgomery County. Well, that's a really attractive proposition. And so I think just the opposite of what you suggested is we actually need to pay our county employees more.
What that comes up against is your search for efficiencies, right?
We have spread this budget out across a conference room table that's probably 10 by 20 feet long, and it's got more sticky notes and red pen question marks about what things are. And so there's all kinds, and I'm not, so I don't know how big the savings are, but I do know that as county executive, I will be relentless in leveraging technology and finding efficiencies, because we've got to figure out how to make this let's put it this way. So there's 3,100 counties in the United States, roughly. All right, 3,100. We're the 17th most richest by household income. Okay, so we're incredibly rich. But when you talk to folks, it doesn't feel that way, right? We're struggling for, keeping our schools repaired and maintenance. We're struggling to repair our roads, our sidewalks. Like, it doesn't feel like we're so rich. And so when you start to, like I said earlier, when you start to peel back that onion, you're like, we've got a lot of money, but it's not getting to where it needs to go.
That's right. I mean, this is the interesting conundrum here, right? We're 17th richest county in the country with very high median household income, and yet we are making also the argument that good paying jobs are not here.
Right. Yeah, and I imagine if we looked at where we ranked a decade ago, we were probably in the top 10, right? And so that trend is very concerning.
David Blair, thank you for coming on I Hate Politics. Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you this morning.
What I miss the most are the shows. My longing for live music grows. This is my quarantine song. Everything feels wrong, but I know it will be okay. Just maybe not today. It'll be okay one day.
That was David Blair from Montgomery County Executive. You can find out more about him at blairformontgomery.com. And you can follow him on Twitter at David T. Blair. Music for this episode comes from Kara Levchenko, an Arlington-based singer-songwriter who is the choir director at Centreville High School in Fairfax, Virginia.
Bring me little water, Sylvie. Bring me little water now. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Bring it in a bucket now. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Sylvie, come running, bucket in my hand. I will bring a little water fast as I can.